Is Ubuntu Pro reshaping Linux economics in ways we haven't fully grasped? Today we're examining Canonical's most significant strategic shift in years, one that could redefine what free means in the Linux ecosystem. This isn't about whether Ubuntu Pro is inherently good or bad. It's about understanding the precedent being set and what it signals for the future of open source economics. We'll separate the facts from the speculation, examine the real implications, and discuss what this means for developers, enterprises, and the broader Linux community. By the end of this analysis, you'll understand not just what Ubuntu Pro does today, but why its business model represents a pivotal moment for open source software economics. Let's dive in. Let's establish the facts first. Ubuntu Pro provides extended security maintenance for packages beyond the standard 5-year LTS cycle, compliant certifications for enterprise environments, and access to additional hardening tools. For personal use up to 5 machines, it's currently free. For enterprises, it's a paid service. The technical offering is straightforward: longer security update cycles, FIPS and common criteria compliance modules, and enterprise-grade support channels. These are legitimate services that require resources to maintain and deliver. What's strategically interesting is how Canonical has positioned this. They've created a clear value proposition for enterprises while maintaining free access for individual users. From a business perspective, this appears to be a well-calculated move to monetize enterprise demand without alienating the community. However, the broader implications emerge when we examine this model within the context of open source economics. Ubuntu Pro represents a shift from community-first development funded by commercial services to a tiered model where premium features are developed primarily for paying customers. The current implementation doesn't restrict access to standard Ubuntu security updates. Those remain free for the standard LTS lifecycle, but it does establish a framework where extended security becomes a premium service. This distinction is crucial for understanding both what's happening today and what could happen tomorrow. Here's where the analysis gets interesting. Canonical has essentially unbundled security maintenance into standard and premium tiers. While current Ubuntu users aren't losing anything they had before, the market signal is clear. Comprehensive long-term security support is now positioned as a premium service. This represents a fundamental shift in how we think about open source sustainability. Traditionally, security updates were considered a community good, essential infrastructure that benefits everyone and should remain universally accessible. Ubuntu Pro suggests a different model: basic security as community infrastructure, extended security as commercial service. The enterprise focus makes business sense. Companies have budgets for IT infrastructure and often prefer paid support for compliance and accountability. But the long-term implications are worth examining carefully. Consider what happens when this model proves successful financially. Other distributions might adopt similar approaches, potentially creating market pressure to stratify security services across the Linux ecosystem. We're not there yet, but the economic incentives are being established. What's particularly noteworthy is how this affects the development priorities. When paying customers have specific needs that differ from community priorities, which takes precedence? This tension isn't unique to Canonical, but Ubuntu Pro makes it more explicit than we've seen before in major Linux distributions. Ubuntu's market position makes this strategy particularly significant. As one of the most widely deployed Linux distributions, Ubuntu's business model decisions influence industry expectations and competitive dynamics. If Ubuntu Pro succeeds commercially, it validates the tiered security model for other distributions. Red Hat already operates in this space with RHEL, but Ubuntu's approach extends tiered services further into markets traditionally served by completely free distributions. The ripple effects are already visible. Other distributions are examining their own sustainability models, and some are exploring similar commercial service offerings. This isn't necessarily negative, but it does represent a shift in the ecosystem's economic foundation. For enterprise customers, this trend toward professional services and clear support structures is generally positive. Companies prefer predictable costs and accountable service providers. The concern is whether this commercial focus might gradually eclipse community-driven development priorities. The most significant risk is fragmentation, not technical fragmentation, but economic fragmentation. If essential services become increasingly stratified based on payment ability, we could see the emergence of distinctly different Linux experiences for different economic segments. Currently, a student learning Linux uses essentially the same system as a Fortune 500 company. This democratic aspect of Linux has been fundamental to its success and community growth. Ubuntu Pro doesn't change this today, but it establishes precedents that could lead in that direction. To understand Ubuntu Pro's significance, we need to examine Canonical's strategic evolution. The company has consistently sought sustainable business models while maintaining Ubuntu's community appeal. Previous attempts included Ubuntu One, convergence initiatives, and various cloud services. Ubuntu Pro represents perhaps their most successful commercial strategy to date. It directly monetizes Ubuntu's core strength, long-term stability and security, without immediately alienating the community. The free tier for personal use was a particularly shrewd decision that maintains goodwill while establishing the commercial framework. This evolution reflects broader trends in open-source economics. Pure community-driven development faces sustainability challenges at enterprise scale. Commercial backing provides resources for development, but potentially shifts priorities away from community needs toward customer requirements. Canonical's approach is more nuanced than simple commercialization. They've maintained significant community investment and haven't restricted access to core Ubuntu functionality. However, they've also clearly established that premium security services require premium payment. The question isn't whether this approach is right or wrong, but whether it represents a sustainable balance between community needs and commercial viability. Early indicators suggest it's financially successful, but the long-term community impact remains to be seen. Let's examine 3 potential scenarios for how this strategy could evolve. Scenario 1: limited impact. Ubuntu Pro remains a niche enterprise service. Community Ubuntu continues unchanged, and other distributions maintain traditional models. This is possible if enterprise demand doesn't drive significant development resource reallocation. Scenario 2: industry adoption. Other major distributions adopt similar tiered models, creating industry standardization around commercial security services. This could provide better sustainability for distributions, but might create cost barriers for some users. Scenario 3: market fragmentation. Extended security becomes predominantly commercial across the ecosystem, creating distinct tiers of Linux access based on payment ability. This would represent a fundamental shift from Linux's traditionally egalitarian approach. Currently, we're seeing elements of Scenario 2 emerging. The key question is whether commercial service development will complement or gradually replace community-driven development priorities. The most likely outcome is probably a hybrid model where community distributions continue serving individual users and small organizations, while commercial distributions focus increasingly on enterprise markets. This isn't necessarily problematic, but it would represent a significant shift from Linux's historically unified ecosystem. The Ubuntu Pro phenomenon isn't something that's happening to the Linux community. It's something we collectively influence through our choices and engagement. If you believe long-term security should remain universally accessible, actively support distributions that maintain strong community-first commitments. Contribute to projects like Debian, Fedora, or OpenSUSE, not just financially, but through code, documentation, and community building. For developers and organizations, consider the long-term implications of your platform choices. Diversity in the Linux ecosystem helps prevent any single commercial strategy from dominating the entire landscape. Most importantly, stay engaged in these discussions. The future of open-source economics isn't predetermined. It emerges from the collective decisions of developers, users, and organizations throughout the ecosystem. Ubuntu Pro represents one vision for open-source sustainability. Whether it becomes the dominant model depends largely on how the community responds. Share this analysis, discuss these implications with your colleagues, and make informed decisions about the Linux future you want to support. The conversation about open-source economics is just beginning. Let's make sure all perspectives are heard.